Okay. So what I was doing before was attempting to demonstrate how a general can impact the combat rating of the troops under their command. And so I think one way to test this is let's say that instead of having six disparate stacks of troops, that I wanted to have them all under the command of Irvin McDowell. He is a lieutenant general. He's got 3 stars. Oh, okay, that's different from what Winfield Scott has. Let's see. Yeah, Winfield Scott has 4 stars. So that's probably because he is currently the general-in-chief of the U.S. Army. So that's why he has this sort of 4th star. But Irvin McDowell is a lieutenant general. Okay, received a brevet promotion to captain. Okay, at Buena Vista, promoted to major. It doesn't describe his later career. But anyway, I think that 3 stars refers to lieutenant general. I will check that later to confirm. But essentially, let's say that I wanted to mirror the historical Battle of Manassas. Right, we've got PGT Beauregard here defending Manassas, and I want to have Irvin McDowell and these 5 divisions move as one to attack. I could do so by having them move individually. Right? Oh, actually, no, I can't because they are locked. But let's say for example purposes that they're not locked. I could then move each of these divisions individually to attack, and they would conduct that attack under their own command. You know, uh, some sort of example of that would be that their attacks would be piecemeal. You know, they might use the same roads to move and delay each other. You know, they wouldn't be able to support each other during the attack. And so what I'm trying to describe is that that attack may not function as well as intended. So one way in which to have a more cohesive attack is to, let's say, reduce the number of disparate stacks from 6 to, let's say, 2, right? So we'll have 1 stack stay behind and defend Alexandria, and we'll have the other stack, let's say under Irvin McDowell, attack. And so I will, for example's sake, combine some divisions here. So I will combine the 2nd Division, and I will place them under the command of Irvin McDowell, and then I will also send the 5th Division into McDowell's army. Right, so that's now increased Irvin McDowell's command. He has 4 batteries under his command, 1 cavalry unit, and 4 brigades under his command. This brigade from New York. What is their name? Huh? Because it says V-2nd Brigade. Okay, interesting. This is the 1st Brigade. This is also the 1st Brigade. I'm not sure why the naming convention is sort of that way. I don't understand that. Anyway, and then he's got 2 other generals under his command. The way that I like to think about it is that Irvin McDowell is in overall command. And then these 2 generals here, Hunter and Miles, for example, they make up his staff. So let's say that Hunter, because he's more senior than Miles, he is the chief of staff of this army. And then Miles, let's say for example, could be maybe the quartermaster of this stack, right? And so um, uh, yes, so we've got these units under McDowell's command, and they have a combat power of 185, right? So let's say now that, you know what, I want to have another. Um, I want them to have more combat power, right? And so like if I add Runyon's division to McDowell, one would think that you just add these two numbers, 185 plus 34. That would be, I think, like 210 maybe, and that would give me better odds in attacking Beauregard in Manassas, who has a combat power of 145. Right, I want to give myself better chances of successfully attacking him. Right, so let's see how that works. Right, 185 plus 34. Let me just make sure that that is accurate. 185 plus 34. Yeah, it's actually 219. Right. So one would think that by combining these two stacks, that you would just add the numerical value of their combat orders, and then it would spit out the eventual um, combat power, right? Let's see if that is the case, right? So it's 172 now. So not only is it not 219, it is actually less than the 185 or 184, I think. No, actually, I think it was 185 that McDowell had before we combined those units. And so, why is that the case, right? Why is it that when you combine more and more units together, you actually have less um, combat power? And to sort of drive that point home more, let's move even Heinzelman's division right into McDowell's army. So it is currently at 172, and adding 67 would bring it to 239, right? But as we saw before with Runyon's division, that wasn't the case. So let's see what actually happens. So instead of 239, it becomes a combat power of 212, right? So what's happening? Why isn't it adding up like we think it should? And this is sort of what I think is sort of so special about this game. This particular mechanic of the game is that it attempts to model how the Civil War was fought. From 61 to 62 to 63, and eventually 65. Right. In the beginning of the war, there were tons of issues about how to organize these thousands and tens of thousands of troops. And not only to organize them, but to effectually use them as a fighting force, right? And and in this case, you've got one army commander controlling these tens of thousands of troops. And at the time, they just didn't know how to do that. And so, what this is attempting to model is the ineffectiveness and the inability of these early U.S. Army commanders to understand how to effectively command and control all of the troops under their command, right? And so, if you add up all of these numbers individually, they will equal more than 212. But because of these command constraints that existed in 61, they are limited, and that is modeled and simulated based on the command points of this army. And so if you look here under this sort of tooltip that I'm hovering over the Northeastern Virginian Army, you'll see the name of the army. You can see it's led by Irvin McDowell. You can see that it requires a command value of 29, but the command value that's being provided is actually just 16. And so there's a penalty to the combat power of this army of 35%. And that's a huge penalty to the combat value of what this army should have, right? And so now the question is, well, what the hell is, um, how did they come up with the number of 29 and 16, right? Who provides the combat value of 16, and why does it require 29, right? So, to briefly explain this, um, the values of the generals in this army, um, when added together, equal 16. And let me just make sure I'm getting that right, because this is um, okay. Their combat values actually add up to so 3, 3, 3. That's 12, and that is 14 for McDowell. But because he is a lieutenant general, he adds a little more value. I will try and find the forum link, and I'll share it in the description here, that describes how the values of command are determined, and it's determined by, of course, the rank of the general, as well as, I believe, their strategic command value, right? So essentially, to have this fighting force be the most effective that it can be, we either have to have a command value of 29, or we have to remove some troops here so that this army becomes more manageable for the generals in it, right? It's just too big at the moment. So you'll see here, I'm going to pull some units out of this army, and the required command value of 29 will go down. So let's try and do that. So let's pull this brigade out, and let's pull this brigade out, and we're they're now their own independent force. And let's hover over McDowell's army again, and we'll see that the required command value went down from 29 to 21. And that means that the penalty for the combat value of this force is just 24%, as opposed to 35%, right? And if memories, actually, let me just add them back over again. So previously, they had a combat value of combat power value of 212, but when we take them out, right, this goes down. This army under McDowell's, his combat value goes down to 184, and this independent force is 49. And if we add them together, we get 233, right? So, but this just goes to show that you can actually effectively have more combat power if you have an army that is more efficient, and an army that doesn't have as a high penalty as 35 when compared to 24. And so if you separate these two armies, you can actually have more combat power, right? You make both armies more manageable for their commanders, as opposed to one huge unwieldy army that the generals in that army, that stack, just are unable to effectively command, right? And so let's continue to pull units out until we have zero penalties to this army. So that would mean that there would be a value of 16, right? And so let's start doing that. So we're going to move that here. We're going to move that, and we'll move another. So what's that at now? Okay, great. So now it is at 15, right? And so the 15 value, by the way, is a measure of the number of units in the army here, right? So these 1, 2, 3, 4 infantry units, this cavalry unit, and these 6 artillery batteries require a command value of 15 um, for them to be commanded effectively. And fortunately now, um, the generals in Irvin McDowell's stack have enough wherewithal and ability at this time to effectively command this army, right? And if we add up the values of these two independent forces, we will get a combat value now of 258, which is a bigger number than we've seen, for example, again when this was all stacked together, right? So again, if you separate them out and you have armies that are not that do not have a penalty to their command, you actually have greater efficiencies, and so better a bigger combat value to either attack um, um, Beauregard in Manassas Junction, or to defend, for example, if Beauregard decides to attack Alexandria. And so what's good when you have two independent stacks is that you have a greater chance of efficiency in these armies, which also means that you have more combat power. The downside, again, is that you have to move them separately, right? You have to move McDowell's army and this independent force. And you just have to hope that they arrive on the same day, that there's no delay in committing to battle from either one of these armies, that they'll be able to effectively support each other in that attack. So that's the downside to having this sort of these two independent forces. Whereas if you just combine them, then like you can guarantee that they'll move together. But again, by guaranteeing that, you also have less combat power, right? So those are sort of like the balance that you want to have, while you're sort of building out your armies here, is that you want to have an efficient force, but also armies that can effectively conduct campaigns and support each other in the field. So what I'm gonna try to do now, right? I'll just combine Tyler's force in here as well, and bring that number up to 294. And you can see here that with all of the units, with all of the infantry, cavalry, and artillery in this stack, they actually require a huge amount of command points, which is 43. And again, the generals in this stack are only providing 16. And if memory serves, you only need 4 generals in one stack to provide the maximum number of command points, which is 16 in this case, right? So I can continue to add, even 10 generals into the stack, but it won't. The provided command value is capped at 16, and that's my memory, at least of how the mechanics of command and control work in 61. And so what I'll try to do is I'll try to find now the most efficient division of troops between these two independent forces to maximize the combat power value. So right now, there's one stack, and that one stack has a combat value of 294, and they're commanded by Irvin McDowell. So I've divided them now. This one stack will be again commanded by McDowell. The next stack will be commanded by Tyler. I think that I will eventually want to move the stack of generals down here to also support Tyler's force, but I want to think about that a little more. So again, we need 43 command points to effectively command this unit. We don't have that, and so I'm going to move troops from this McDowell stack into Tyler's force, sort of again break them up, and let's find the most efficient setup for this. So I'm going to move that brigade. I'm also going to remove maybe this cavalry unit, maybe a couple artillery pieces. Okay, now let's see where we're at. So, oh, I also moved McDowell. I did not mean to do that. You go back there. Okay, so right now we already see that Tyler's force is only generating 4 command points, but even with just 5 units here, that he already requires 8 command points to effectively command this force without a penalty. And McDowell's army still has a 35% penalty to the combat power. So maybe that's the best we can do right now. Maybe, or maybe I can continue to add forces here and see if I can get a better value. And I'm not really getting a better value. This is 209 plus 83. That's pretty comparable to when they were all combined at 294. So maybe we just keep it here, right? And bring, let's say, Hamilton and Erasmus Keys down, and let's also bring the Washington Brigade with them, and we're going to bring them down to Alexandria, and split these forces into 2 to hopefully maximize combat value, and again with the purpose of effectively defending Alexandria from any potential attack from Beauregard's force there. What I like to do with Milroy's force, I think that I want to move them to Harper's Ferry, right? And right now they're taking this force on a march through Alexandria and then in Loudoun County, or to Loudoun, Virginia. I don't want them to do that because that's currently controlled by the Confederates. I'd rather them use our internal lines and go through Maryland and then into Harper's Ferry. So instead of doing that, I will tell them to move by rail, and then I'll do that. Okay, great. So then instead of 8 days, it'll take them 4 days. I will also tell Shields' force to move and join with Schurz's cavalry unit. And there are 2 ways in which I can tell them to move. The first is, I can just click and drag and just tell them to, station themselves in the county. The other thing I can do is to click and drag and actually place them, hover this Shields' command over Schurz's command, and that sort of will show a highlight of these 2 sort of blue soldiers, and a double-sided sort of arrow thing there that's sort of blinking. And what that signifies is that when Shields moves into Harper's Ferry region, he will automatically combine with Schurz's force. So I'm going to do that. You can see here, okay, your New York volunteers, you're targeting the volunteers under Schurz by Shields. So we're going to combine them. Of note, though, I'm not confident in Schurz's ability to hold place if Joe Johnston's force, for example, moves up from Strasburg through Winchester and then into Harper's Ferry. So I don't have faith that he will be able to repel those forces, especially because it's just one cavalry regiment. So what I will do, and what's something that I haven't spoken about yet, is I will tell Schurz, I will command him that if in the event that enemy forces enters the region that he is in, I will tell him to not engage them, and that if he is engaged, that he should retreat at the earliest opportunity. So how do I do that? The way to do that is by these 2 markers here. Every unit has these 2 markers next to it, and that's because these 2 refer to the posture of the unit of the stack and the action that unit will take. So at the moment, um, and by default, um, every unit has a posture of defensive and will defend, right? So if they are attacked, they will defend. And so what does defensive posture mean? It says that you won't engage the enemy in the region, you will allow them to pass by, but if you are attacked, the terrain can provide some advantage. You will not gain any ground, military control percentage, by defending against an enemy, even if you have the upper hand in battle, right? So it says that um, um, I won't, Schurz is commanded to not attack any forces in the region. But if he is attacked, he will make an attempt to hold his ground and defend it. And again, I don't want him to do that because it may lead to the destruction of his command, and I don't want that. Instead, what I will do is tell him to do a passive posture. So, what does that mean? So, it says that it is the same as the defensive posture, but with combat penalties if I'm attacked. And if I am attacked, I have a higher chance of retreat. And so during the replacement phase, these units will have a higher priority. So this sort of green posture is called a passive posture. I'm basically telling Schurz again that if he is engaged in Harper's Ferry, that he is ordered to, at earliest opportunity, retreat back into Union lines. For example, to Frederick, or even back to Baltimore. I don't want him to hold his ground and lose casualties. I want him to retreat. We have ground to give, and I'd rather not lose him or the cavalry regiment under his command. But just to sort of describe it a bit more about this mechanic, you can see that there are other postures that I can order this particular stack to take. This red posture refers to assaulting a town or fortification. And so, let's say, for example, that 2 years from now, Schurz's force is much more powerful than it is now, and we're at the gates of, let's say, Fredericksburg, right? The way in which and there are currently there in Fredericksburg there is a huge Confederate army that is starving. They've been under siege for weeks and weeks, and we are besieging Fredericksburg. The way in which I can force the force battle is by moving Schurz then to an assault posture. So he will then he is then commanded to enter Fredericksburg and fight for the town. And so I'll just read this here. For ground force, this means that an enemy structure encountered at the end of movement will be assaulted without sieging. And if you need to assault all structures encountered while moving, you must also set the ROE of the stack to all-out attack. And ROE refers to this sort of second set of actions. And I don't know what ROE stands for, but again, you should know that it refers to these actions, right? So that's assault. The other posture, the orange posture is defense. Sorry, it's offense. And so you will attack on sight any opponent in the region. You will not benefit from the terrain nor from entrenchment, but you can gain some ground, referring to military control, if you have the upper hand in battle. And so this is useful if, for example, I have a very strong force here in Harper's Ferry. Schurz has an army with combat value of, let's say, 500, right? But I don't want him to attack Winchester. I don't want him to move from Harper's Ferry. I would prefer Joe Johnston to attack me, right? And so, and let's say that Joe Johnston does. So I would then tell Schurz to stay here in Harper's Ferry. I would put him in an offensive posture and wait for Joe Johnston to move his army to me. And then Schurz is then ordered to attack Johnston, right? Um, it's also important to note, however, that um, by default, if Joe Johnston moves, right, and encounters an enemy force, for the most part, they are defaulted to attack. But again, like for the defense posture or the passive posture, if Joe Johnston moves into Harper's Ferry, let's say in a passive posture, he is ordered to not engage any units in Harper's Ferry, right? And so unless he moves in an offensive posture or in an assault posture, he will not engage Sturge's force. And so to force Joe Johnston to engage my force, I would actually have to engage. I would have to order Sturge to engage him, and I would have to do that by ordering him into an offensive posture. That any forces that move into this region of his, he will then attack, right? So I hope that effectively explains the posture mechanics. This is really important for conducting campaigns, both on an operational and sometimes tactical level. And again, in this instance, I want Schurz to be on a passive posture because I don't want him to engage any Confederate forces, even if they come out to attack us. And so the ROE, or the other four actions down here, refer to the actual sort of action that I would like him to take. So again, this is posture, this is the action. So green is retreat if engaged, increased retreat chances, including the retreat roll before actual combat occurs, right? I could put him on green, right? Or I can tell him, have a passive posture, don't engage, but actually, no, I can't. So when I do green posture, it has to be a green action, right? But let's say, for example, that we put him in a defensive posture, so he'll defend the territory, but he will not attack. I can tell him to, even if you're on defensive, try and retreat. If you're engaged, fight, for a couple of hours, and then retreat, right? Or I can tell him to defend. Yeah, okay, yeah. So here it says defend and retreat. Your side will want to retreat starting with the third round unless the attack is failing and the chances to succeed in doing so are increased, right? So I can be like, hey, you know what? I want you to defend yourself. I want you to engage the enemy. But if you're losing, I want you to retreat after 4 hours of battle, right? And then he will attempt to do so unless he is winning that battle. Or I can say, defend yourself, right? But do so without consideration of retreat, right? Only retreat if you were forced to retreat by the enemy, right? And that's this sort of orange note here. Or I can tell him, you know what? You got to hold that ground. You will hold that ground at all costs, no matter the losses that you're taking. Retreat is not an option for you, right? And that I don't know that I'll ever have to do that, but it's an option that's available, right? So that's for defense, the defense posture. Okay, what about offense, right? What happens? What changes if it's if I tell him to take an offensive posture? So first is to a feint attack, right? So probe the enemy. I want you to, if they move here, I want you to attack them, right? But it's not a all-out attack. It is a probing attack. It is an attack to find out their strength, to test them. So I'll just read this here. Your side will want to call off the attack starting with the second round, unless the defender is collapsing, and the chances to succeed in doing so are greatly increased. Both sides have significantly fewer losses, right? So a probing attack is one where, again, you test the enemy's strength, but you don't press the attack unless, again, in this case, the enemy just ends up collapsing, right? So, okay, what about blue? What does that mean? So conservative attack. Your side will want to call off the attack beginning with the third round unless the defender is collapsing. The chances to succeed in so doing are increased. and both sides suffer equally fewer losses. So this is a conservative attack. This is something that is a little more substantial than a probing attack, but it is not as substantial as a concerted attack, right? So in this game, it's described as a sustained attack. So in this case, if I tell him to do a sustained attack, it means that this is the default behavior. No changes are made to combat, and he will attack and continue to attack until casualties mount and he is forced to stop his attack. And what is that? What does this sort of red button mean? It means an all-out attack. So your side will not try to retreat during the first 2 rounds of battle, and the retreat chance will be reduced for the rest of the day. The losses of both sides are increased, but more for your side. This is also the only ROE that will enable an assault on forts even while still on the move. Okay, so this is a sort of, you know, Vicksburg moment, you know, when General Grant was besieging Vicksburg before its eventual surrender, and he was sending troops on frontal attacks to try and breach the trench lines around Vicksburg. I mean, this is an attack order that you give when you were, again, for example, attacking, the structure and enemy forces inside Fredericksburg, or historically, let's say, when Grant was attacking Vicksburg. And again, for an assault posture, I believe the only, oh no, it's not. Okay, so I can place him in an assault posture to attack an enemy structure, but I can also tell him to, I have these options for the kind of attack that he will conduct. Great. So that's good to know. But again, I want him to retreat. I don't want him to engage any forces that might come and try and drive him from Harper's Ferry. I will happily let them maintain control over Harper's Ferry. Okay. That is, again, postures and attacks orders, and it's such an interesting wrinkle in the game. These Marines, I think that Marines are really important. They have a special trait. It says that, the trait name is called amphibious. They have a 0% penalty associated with naval landings, and they only have a 50% penalty for opposed river crossings. And this ability applies to all elements of the unit that this element is in. And so if this is important for example, when we are attacking Fredericksburg from Falmouth, right? We're moving from Falmouth to Fredericksburg, and we are crossing this river. It's important because it'll half the penalty that our attacking force will have on in that attack. In the same way, let's say, for example, that we're conducting a naval landing, on the peninsula, right? If it is opposed, there then will be a penalty of 0 that's associated with that naval landing. So it basically means that there's no penalty for a naval landing conducted where a Marine unit is, right? I don't think that we'll be attacking anytime soon. And so the traits here are not particularly relevant to us yet. With that said, I do think that we need as much help as we can get to the front. I think that their services are best suited in Scherz's force for the moment, right? It's an infantry unit. It's one that will actually capture Harper's Ferry if they remain there. And so I want, again, I want this Marine Corps unit, Marine Corps unit in Harper's Ferry to support Scherz's occupation of Harper's Ferry. Okay, so with that said, yes, I am moving Hamilton's folks to Alexandria, and I want them to move there immediately. And so I'm putting them on rails, and I want them to actually join with McDowell's unit as soon as they get there. Right? Okay, great. Um, okay, I can't move that. That's fixed. Is there anything else? Okay, great. These volunteers can't move, but Nathaniel Banks has spawned into the game. He is likewise a lieutenant general. Again, I think the 3 stars signify a lieutenant general in the same way that McDowell's is 3 stars refer to that. McDowell has a seniority rating of 9, and Banks has a seniority rating of 2. So if I moved Banks into McDowell's force, um, because Nathaniel Banks has more seniority, um, Banks would actually then become the commanding general of this army, and the traits that Banks has would affect the army as opposed to McDowell's traits. McDowell again has 222, and Banks has 201. So you know, Banks is not a very good battlefield commander. Um, again, a rating of 201 is sort of abysmal, and I want him sort of as far away from command as possible. So what do we do with him? And so maybe his traits here can help us out. So he is a recruiting officer. This leader can muster new conscripts on a regular basis in cities of level 5 or more. The force under his command must be in the city to do so, and this applies to the leader. This applies rather if Banks is the leader, rather of the commander of the stack. So those that applies. So he is the camp commander of his own stack, and he must be in a city for this trait to become active. And so I need to place him in a city of 5 or level 5 or more for him to be able to uh, increase our conscript, um, the increase of our conscript rate, right? So let's see, what does level 5 city mean? Where can okay, so is that what it refers to? Size. Let me read that again. On a regular basis in cities of level 5 or more. Level 5 or more. Ah, okay, okay. So I think that the level 5 or more, I believe, refers to the size of a city, right? So New York City has a size of 20. Jersey City has a size of 6. Philly has a size of 20. Baltimore has a size of 12. So I could actually just plop him in Baltimore for the entirety of the game and have him increase our conscript rate. Let me see if that changes. So right now we have an increase of 92 per turn. Sorry, no, increase of 92 per turn. Um, let's see if we put him inside Baltimore. Right now he's now in the structure of Baltimore, and let's just do that so he goes in there. What happens to our conscript? Okay, it hasn't updated yet. It'll probably update next turn, where he will where this trait will come into effect. Okay, let's leave Banks in Baltimore. Okay, I still cannot move these volunteers here. This artillery battery is still forming up. I cannot move anybody in this New York unit, nor in these ships, nor this New Jersey unit. So I don't think I can do anything else, at least on the map. What I think I still can do... Oh, no, there are some Texas troops that I can still move around. So let me do that. Let me just check on my ships. Yes, I did that already. Let's go to Texas. Great. So, as you can see here, this cavalry unit that is named the 1st Texas move from Dallas to Tyler and to Henderson. Henderson is currently besieged, but the cavalry unit did capture Tyler. Is there anything I can do here? Okay, maybe not. It's going to move up along uh, north and land in Pleasant, Texas next turn, and hopefully capture that town. Okay. What can I do here? Disband? No. Okay. This unit, called the 2nd Texas, moved from Dallas to, I think, Cook, and then on over to Grayson. And Grayson is now currently besieged. I don't really care to have him stay here. The 2nd Texas Cavalry unit stay here, so I'm going to continue to move him up to Fort Washita. Yes, and then to this encampment, this settlement, Tishomingo, and then further on up to rendezvous with northern our forces in the north. Let's say that. Do I want him to stay here in Gibson? Huh. You know, why don't we try and cut supplies from units up, Confederate units up here in Jefferson City or Rolla or Rolla or Springfield. Let me see if I can just move them to this fort first, and then from that fort to capture Fayette. I will try that, and that'll be your orders. For this cavalry unit, maybe the same. You know, I definitely can't take Camden. There's a unit in here, and there's a fort. I'm not taking that with one cavalry unit. Where's Little Rock? Little Rock. Little Rock. Here. Little Rock is a little further away than I thought it would be. I don't think that... Yeah. It'll take 55 days, and by that point you would be out of supplies with no combat power. And this is very likely garrisoned by a Confederate unit already. So, I'll cancel that order. I will tell you just move. I will tell this unit to just move up to this fort, Fort Townsend, and then from there, link up with your guy up here, and we'll try that out. I think their postures are fine. I don't expect to meet any resistance moving up here. If they do, then they will be engaged. But again, I hope they won't be, because they're quite vulnerable until I get them back to the north. That's Texas. Yep, I think I looked at the west already. Nothing's happening over here, which is fine. So I truly think that I don't have anything to do. Again, these are the only volunteers moving to be upgraded by McClellan. Let me now look at any decisions I can make. Again, this is a huge number of recruits that I can that I need, replacements rather that I need. Yeah, that's a huge number. I'll come back to that. I first want to figure out if there are any other decisions I can make. There looks like there is not. I don't want to print money, nor offer concessions. What else? Oh, wow. So an objective is Dallas. And I've taken that just now. Cool. I mean, I think that the Confederate will take it back in not a lot of time at all. But it's cool that event fired. And I have 2 cavalry units in Texas moving around. Okay, this is the recruit menu. And so I have the ability to recruit a ton more troops now that Fort Sumter has been fired upon and a state of war exists between the North and the South. So this is all these are all units that I can recruit, right? Oh, look at all these juicy units that I can have now. The question really is like, who do I prioritize? How do I make this the best? How do I make these armies the best fighting force so that I can repel any southern invasions, right? And importantly, I just scroll through all of those units. All of those units are recruitable, but they are only recruitable in specific regions, right? So let's look at New England. New England, I can recruit, a bunch of volunteers. I can recruit a cavalry unit, a brig, some sharpshooters, some artillery, some regular infantry, and some ships, right? But if let's say I scroll over this infantry unit from Connecticut, I can only recruit them within the boundaries, the state boundaries of Connecticut, right? Well, the boundaries of Connecticut are here through here, and then they come down. No, that's Rhode Island. I guess that's interesting. They don't have Rhode Island modeled here. So Rhode Island and Rhode Island and Connecticut in this game are the same. But suffice to say that, oh no, you see, okay, yeah, so it doesn't shoot into Rhode Island. It is the frigate that I can build in Rhode Island, but not this infantry brigade. So yeah, that makes a ton of sense. So again, the borders of Connecticut are here, through there, right? And this infantry brigade can only be recruited within the state borders of Connecticut. That is super cool. In the same way, this frigate can be recruited in any port along the Atlantic in New England. That is really cool. Okay, what about this volunteer unit from Rhode Island, right? It can only be recruited within the state borders of Rhode Island. Super cool. I can't form up a unit from Rhode Island in New York, for example, or in California, or in Texas. Like, it has to be local to the state that it's forming in, which is entirely accurate and super cool. So that's New England. We have the Mid-Atlantic, so that includes Pennsylvania and New York and Maryland. Super important states that contributed so much to the war effort. I can build a ton of stuff here, including ships and infantry and artillery and cavalry. Historically, there were I guess you can call them ironworks, but historically Pennsylvania created a ton of artillery units for the Union cause, and so that's why it's reflected at in this way where you can build. Let's see how many you can get. You can build 1, 2, 3 different artillery units in Pennsylvania, and the 3 are really impressive. It's the 10-pounder, it is the 20-pounder, and it is the siege artillery here. So just really impressive. And again, it's different. Excuse me, it's different depending on where you're recruiting from, right? So the old Northwest refers to Indiana, Ohio, Michigan, and so you've got your standard volunteers, but also these sharpshooters, right, from West Virginia and Ohio. Again, modeling off this historic notion that like folks who lived out in Ohio and West Virginia, grew up, with a gun in their hand, hunting out in the woods, and so they would naturally be able to recruit units of people who were proficient in firing a rifle, right? And they would be formed into units of sharpshooters. Super cool sort of detail, right? You can also recruit horse artillery. That'll be really useful in being able to keep speed with infantry units and other cavalry units, but also bring a lot of firepower to the unit that they're attached to. You've got tons of regular infantry that you can recruit from these states. And then what's really cool when you go out to the west, right? So this is the west, but this is the West as it's referred to in 1861, which is Missouri and Kansas. Um, we think of them as the Midwest now, but back in the day, um, uh, this was referred to as the West because these were the westernmost states of the Union. Well, actually, was California a part of the Union by then? I think California was already a state by then. So, I mean, yeah, so for all intents and purposes, this is just called the West because it's called the West, right? So, what's the Southwest? Southwest is New Mexico and California, right? So I can recruit rangers there. What is the Rockies? The Rockies is Colorado, right? I can recruit this volunteer unit in Colorado. Cool. And then the far west is California and New Mexico. So I can recruit volunteers from both of those places. What I want to do from the get is to recruit rangers rather, and I want to do that because of this interesting tactic that I used in my last campaign as the Union. Um, I just thought it was cool. It was a cool use of Rangers. Because historically they were recruited out in New Mexico and in Colorado, and they were used to fight the Confederate out in West Texas. I think that I'll have plenty of troops with supplies fighting out here. I don't need the Rangers there. But what I can have them do is to act as sort of raiding units along the eastern coast of the Confederacy, right? And so I will have them form up where they can. Let's say here in Leavenworth rather, and then as soon as they are ready to go, I will transport them out east, maybe to Annapolis or Baltimore or Philly, get them onto transport ships, and then have them, go up and down the East Coast, raiding different states, right? So, these forts, of course, are all defended, but these cities may not be, right? And then once these rather rangers, get into a city, they can then, rip up rails or destroy supply depots, right? And then they can even range deeper into, let's say, in this case, North Carolina, right? And they can cut the rail at Southport, right? And then they can range in and cut the rail at Lexington, or Salisbury, or Greensboro, and by in so doing, they would have cut two of the three rail lines that the Confederacy uses to move troops from Virginia out west or out west to Virginia, right? And so if they did that, the only rail available to the Confederacy would be this rail along. What would you call this? I mean, it runs west to east, but it sort of cuts through the Appalachian Mountains. I know for a fact that this rail line had a historical name. I just don't know it. But again, this would be the only rail line available to the Confederacy, right? And then let's say, for example, that I had a cavalry unit from West Virginia or Ohio or Kentucky, raid into this rail line and cut that as well. At the same time that Ranger unit, was ranging into North Carolina, then I would be able to cut the ability for the South to move units back and forth in an effective manner, right? And as you saw earlier, in prior episodes, it takes a long time to walk, right? To march from place to place, even out in Virginia, right? Or Maryland, and that's a relatively small state. Imagine having to, there's a battle going on, and you desperately need resources out here, and you're moving them from Vicksburg down here. Like, it would take you a month, maybe even more, 2-3 months to get them to where they need to go if you were marching them, right? Whereas if you were moving them by train, they maybe get there in like a week and a half. right? So that's my intention for these ranger units. At the moment, I could only have recruited one of them, right? So I'm looking at Southwest. I recruited the one in Leavenworth, and there's not another available to me, so I will just stick with that. And as I'm able to recruit more of them, I will continue to sort of do that and funnel them to the east, and use them as raiding parties. Okay. I think the next important thing to do is to where is Cincinnati here? Okay, is to recruit more volunteer units, um, and have McClellan train them up into regular U.S. Army infantry units. And the best way to do that is to recruit them as Ohio units because McClellan is stationed in Ohio. So I don't know, I don't have to move them out from Michigan, for example, or Pennsylvania. They will be recruited in Ohio, in the city of Cincinnati. So that's one. I'm going to do another. Oh, you know what? Oh, okay, great, great. So, I was worried earlier that I wouldn't be able to maximize McClellan's trait of training up units, but just realized that when I recruit more and more, I can just combine them now. And so McClellan will train this unit up next turn, and then the next turn after, he'll have these two units train up. Cool. Okay, great. You're good to go. Let me train up more. Let me buy more. There you go. So you'll have, at the very least, 1, 2, 3 turns of training to do, and you can't move until 4. So yeah, you're staying here. You're staying here. Okay, that also means that I need another. I need another set of volunteers to recruit. Where do y'all have? So you do have. This is West Virginia. What about Ohio? Okay. Can I click that? No, I cannot. Okay. Okay, I will explain that later. Let me find another state to recruit volunteers from, and hopefully by the time that they are formed up, I can move them to McClellan, and not lose any efficiency there. So I think Indiana works. I will plop y'all down there in Madison. Let's do another 2. Yeah, I've got plenty of money, and I've got plenty of recruits to work with, and I will combine y'all. And so these guys will take how many turns? Okay, 2 turns, 16 days, 2 turns to form up, which gives McClellan enough time to train this unit and these 2 units up, and then by the time that we move these troops over to McClellan, he will still have these 2 troops to train up, and so we won't be losing any efficiency there. Wonderful. Okay. Who else should I recruit? I should still. Let's recruit them first, and then we can explain what they do later. I want more folks in Maryland. But now the question is, what kind of folks? Do I want these huge brigades with 3 elements? Or no, I'm sorry, that's 5 elements. Or do I want more discrete, folks like these Zouaves, right? Or do I want more artillery? Well, let's see what here is here. I've got tons of infantry, tons of artillery, but no cav? I have 1 cav unit. So maybe I recruit some more cav here in Maryland. Yeah. Okay, that works. And let's have some Zouaves, right? So let's recruit some Zouaves in Pennsylvania. There you go. And some Zouaves in New York. Yeah? Yeah. Okay. There we go. And I'll explain a little later for why I did that. Like why of all these units, right? Why in the world did I pick Zouaves? I can explain that later. Oh, and what's really cool is that these guys have historic names. That is really cool. So this is the 23rd Pennsylvania, and they are nicknamed Philadelphia, right? So ostensibly, and historically, rather, it can be presumed that these guys came from Philadelphia, right? And then these are called the Fire Zouaves. Really cool. The Keystone Zouaves that are named after the Keystone State, right? Super cool. Super cool. And then what about these guys in New York? What are y'all called? This is the first Albany. Of course, that would presumably mean that they were recruited from Albany. These are the Zouave Guards. Interesting. And then Wilson Zouaves. So I don't know who Wilson was, but presumably he was the colonel of these Zouaves, the 6th in New York, right? Super cool. Super cool. Great. Each of these units have just one element of Zouaves. Like you can see here that it has one brevet or one chit. And there's nothing to sort of fill in, as opposed to units in McDowell's army at the moment. For example, this unit here, or even this unit that is called the I-1st Brigade from Connecticut. They have just two elements right now, which are this line infantry and this conscript unit, but they've got 3 more to fill in, right? And what's interesting about these conscripts, right? And they have I think these are called NATO symbols, right? This infantry unit is denoted by a rectangle box and a diagonal line cutting through the middle of from both ends, right? And a C on the inside, whereas a regular infantry unit will not have that C, right? So when I'm hovering over these unit cards and I'm looking to see like what these units actually consist of, like of course I can click on them like I'm doing now and cycle through and read each one, but I can also look on the sort of this card here and I can tell like this is a regular infantry unit and this is a conscript unit because it has that C here, right? And if I hover over it, it says conscript. And these conscript units can be upgraded by McClellan's training unit, or training trait, which is cool. So eventually when I move them out here, I can cycle some of these guys to his command and have them be trained up into professional soldiers. But again, at the moment, I think the moment requires us to, have them stay here. Well, not by chance either, because they can't move for another 3 turns. But to have them stay here and defend Alexandria and DC, the capital. Okay. Who else do I want to recruit? Sharpshooters are incredibly important. Incredibly important. I can explain why later. But I think every army should have sharpshooters. Maybe this is also a good time to explain what these guys are, right? Engineers, HQ support, naval engineers, medical unit, and a signal corps. A signal corps adds command value to the army that you place them in, right? So for example, if I recruit this unit of signal corps, it'll appear on the map, and after it forms up, I can move them into McDowell's command. And so instead of the 16 value that is provided by the generals in that stack, it'll be increased to I believe 18. Right, so each Signal Corps uh, uh, company that I recruit can increase the value of the command provided by the generals by 2, right? And Signal Corps, like that kind of makes intuitive sense. Like they were the guys who were, assisting the general, the commanding general, in communications, right? They would sit on mountaintops and high points and have flags, right? And using those flags and binoculars, communicate with those flags, varying messages, as opposed to having runners or riders conveying orders or messages, by running it over, or by riding a horse, a physical horse, right, to those HQs. Medical Corps, again, kind of intuitive. I believe that they. Can I just read it? Is there a thing I can read? Not yet. I have to recruit it first, and then that trait will sort of be hoverable, and then I can read it. But the medical unit, if memory serves, um, increases the recovery rate of the of the stack that medical unit is in, right? And so after battle, it'll let's say that McDowell fought Beauregard here. If I had a medical unit here, it would be able to recover both the manpower, the red bar, and the blue bar quicker. I think. Okay, these naval engineers. Oh gosh, I think that these are the guys that. I don't know. It's been a while. I don't know. And I don't even know what these engineers do, but I know that they're important. I know that they are important. Is it that they increase the siege value? I don't remember. I think the most important and the most impactful of these 5 are the HQ supports, because the HQ support has the trait that the medical unit has and the Signal Corps unit has, and another trait combined, right? Of course, they cost a lot more money. So this costs 97, these cost 48, this costs 48, and so ultimately you save some money, right? Not 48 plus 48. What is that? 48 times 2. That's 96. So no, you don't save money. You pay 1 more money. But they have, again, both of these guys' traits and another one. I forget what the other one is at the moment, but it's really important. And by 1863, ideally and optimally, I would like to have an HQ support in every army that's on the field, right? So in McDowell's army, in an army that I had in the Shenandoah Valley, in the Mississippi, et cetera, et cetera. Okay. I think that I want. Oh, Marines, sailors. I think that my preference is to recruit units that are not conscripts or volunteers, where I don't have a training officer. So right now, I don't have a training officer like McClellan out east. He's currently in Cincinnati. I know that I said I would eventually move him. I just don't know when. So I would like to recruit folks who don't need to be upgraded from them being volunteers or conscripts. These are all conscripts. These all have at least 1 conscript unit, or rather regiment, except for that Pennsylvania one. This Pennsylvania brigade has regular infantry and sharpshooters attached, which is really attractive. And I think that I will recruit them. All 5 of them. going to run out of troops. Is that all right? Is that okay? That's okay. That's all right. So I'm down to 11 conscripts, and I'm only getting 96 next turn. So I think I'll have to be judicious in my use of recruiting folks. But I still have a ton of money to spend. So what do I spend them on? Do I build ships? Oh, I should also pull up the recruits. Does that change? Yeah, it does. Huh. I will just let that be. You see all here, all of the units that I've decided to recruit here on that map. What I'll do is in the meantime, I will. Yes, I want more ships. And you may be asking, like, man, the Union already has had an advantage out in the seas. Like, what more do I want? And what I want is not any ship, but a very... Oh, pontoons are super important too. Okay. I want... All right, keep scrolling through. Oh, River Ring, got engineers. Oh, God. Oh, here we are. Transports. Transports. Why do I want transports? Of course, to be able to transport troops around. But more importantly, when I put transports in this shipping lane box, it increases my income. And I remember reading that the cost of transports, it being 20 money and 10 war supply, will pay for themselves in very quick order. So I will plop them down in Annapolis. There you go. 2 transports in Annapolis. I'm going to combine them. And then it'll take 30 days for them to become functional. But once they are, I will move them down into the shipping lanes so that they can help increase my income per turn. And then eventually, I'll continue to build transports as I get them in this recruitment inventory thing, I guess. And then eventually, I will use those transports to transport a stack of troops to New Orleans, to capture New Orleans. So I want to have that sort of strategic, I guess, reserve of transports available at the outset to permit me flexibility to decide when I want to take New Orleans. I don't want to be prevented from doing so because I don't have enough transports, for example. Okay, so I've got 3 more recruits remaining. I think I'll just build this HQ unit now because it's so powerful. In my opinion, at least, it's so powerful. And just do that. And I want these engineers. I forgot what they do, but I remember them being an important piece to any support role of an army. So I have 0 recruits now, and a ton more money. Can I do anything with that money? I don't remember. Honestly, don't remember. Yeah, it doesn't look like it. Yeah. So it'll just sit in my piggy bank. It'll just sit there. And that was my turn. I know that it's been a long time. I think I've been recording for like over an hour now. But I hope that what I have shared already has been helpful and informative. And I hope that it makes sense in the sort of broader context of like what I'm trying to do, right? And that context is this, right? I am defending on all fronts. Oh gosh, I need to get folks here, but I can't move anybody yet. Okay, yes, I've got to get folks here sometime soon because I can't even get people railed into Morgantown right now because the only rail access is controlled by Confederates right here in Clarksburg and Parkersburg. If I could get somebody in Marietta, I could get them across the river, and then going. But again, this is controlled by Confederates. And then if I tried to move them from Harper's Ferry, all of these um, regions here are controlled by Confederacies, but by the Confederacy, and that means that I can't rail people through. I would have to march them through until I reach friendly lines, and then I can rail in. So it's quite possible that I'll lose Morgantown next turn, and then he will have captured a supply depot, which would then permit him supplies to springboard into an invasion of Pennsylvania. Here are the borders of Pennsylvania. Okay, I mean, a little concerning, and something that we definitely have to keep an eye out on. We'll combine all these brigades. You can see here, because that each of these brigades has 2 line infantry units, and 1 sharpshooter unit. Each of them has this trait, and I'll read it real quick. This unit possesses a sharpshooter, which impedes enemy reaction. It provides a +1 initiative bonus in battle to the whole unit. Incredibly powerful. +1 initiatives in battle. That is incredibly powerful. It means that we have, at least in my mind's eye, it means that I can trust a little more that the orders that I give these commanders will be carried out effectively, and as I ordered them, as opposed to them dilly-dallying and not following through. Okay, I think that now is a good time to just end the turn. It has been a very long one. Probably not the longest that we'll have in this campaign, just because there are just so many things to do, especially as, we build our armies in the east and along the Mississippi. There will just be tons and tons of things to look over and check and double check and maybe even triple check. Okay. Okay, I can actually move these guys too. Do I want to? At the very least, yeah, no, I don't think I need to. I don't think that I need to. Do I move these guys out? Because I gave orders to the generals out east to sort of move to their intended points. Do I do the same here? I think I do. I think that I split them. I split them 4 and 4. Right, so that's 4. Here's another 4. And these guys, I will tell this command under Aspeth, I will tell to go to Cairo by rail. And this other force under McCall, I will tell them to stay put and defend St. Louis. Because I'll be recruiting troops in Cairo and in St. Louis, and I need commanders in both places. Okay, I think that's enough. My memory says that's enough. Yeah, okay, I think that's enough. Okay, let me... Oh, gosh. Okay, I will end the turn because I don't have any idea of what else I could do. Yeah, I think everything that can be moved has been moved. Everything that can be checked has been checked. Okay, you know what? Let's just do that. So what will happen? It's turn 0. Will they attack us? It looks like they haven't. They are staying put, at least in the east. Oh, and here. Oh, I've got I got a cavalry unit here. Oh, wow. Okay. Why was that the case? It's called the West Virginia Defense. Interesting. Cool. Okay, so Joe Johnston did not move from Strasburg, and I'll combine these guys. Milroy is now the commander of this force in the valley in Harper's Ferry. And again, because he moved here with these Marines, or rather that these Marines moved from Annapolis, we were able to successfully capture Harper's Ferry. And because of that, I think I do want them to stick around and put up a little bit of fight. So I've now put him in the defensive posture, and I will tell him to defend and retreat. You know, fight back a little bit, but you know, don't give up. Okay, let me step back and take stock. Okay, the St. Louis Massacre. Loyal Missourians warned us of a secessionist plot to seize the depot at St. Louis Armory, where large numbers of weapons and ammunition are stored. Captain Nathaniel Lyon. You see, I thought he wasn't a general, right? So Captain Nathaniel Lyon took the initiative to strike first and arrested the state militiamen. His inexperienced soldiers clashed with hostile civilians, and gunfire from both sides were heavy. Federal troops are now patrolling the streets to restore order. And this is the man. This is Nathaniel Lyon. And he's got a rating of 522. So far, he is our best general. He's got a ton of initiative, which is, of course, reflective of history. Like, he took action without receiving order from his commanding officer, who at that point, I believe, was Henry Halleck. And he, again, nearly single-handedly prevented Missouri from declaring for the Confederacy, which is incredibly important. Incredibly important. Okay, what else? Martial law in Maryland, yes. The rioting in Baltimore and other events prompted a federal declaration of martial law to ensure the safety of the troops and the loyalty of the state government. The Union Army entered Baltimore and occupied the city. Several disloyal Maryland state legislators who were believed to support secession were imprisoned. Troops were garrisoned throughout the state. Normalcy returned, and the Maryland legislature officially rejected secession. That is really important, and something I haven't talked about yet, in that, you know, there was a real question of whether or not Maryland would declare for the Confederacy, because there were so many slaveholders in the state, and a real sort of concern that Lincoln and his administration had was that, you know, if Maryland declared for the Confederacy, like, what would happen to D.C., right? D.C. is sandwiched between Virginia and Maryland, right? And so if, you know, Maryland declared for the Confederacy, D.C. would be sitting in between two hostile states, and a real question of the survival of the Union would be at play. Okay, so the next one is that North Carolina secedes from the Union. Okay. I will stop there for now.